Step Cordova, creator of the Leicester equaliser. El Khanous, how much room does he have here? El Khanous going for goal, and he finds it as well. What a turnaround here at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
4 minutes, Leicester have soaked up so much pressure. Fatawi jinking feet to get beyond his man, and the header from Jamie Vardy makes it 2.
It's Wood should score. Wood Knockout. Yes! Yes! Anthony Knockout has done it.
Tielemans lining one up. What a goal! What a brilliant goal by Youri Tielemans! And the Leicester City fans go absolutely potty.
In behind Damian Vardy. It's 11. It's heaven for Jamie Vardy. Hold the back page. Hold the front page. A Leicester player has smashed the record.
Hello everybody and welcome back to Blue Tinted Glasses. It's Sunday morning, which means it's time for Good Morning Foxes or Bad Morning Foxes. I've just stopped changing the thumbnail now to bad. I should probably just keep it as bad really, but until next season. But there we go. Yeah, we've got a lot to talk about today, so make sure to get all your comments in the live chat. I can already see loads flying in. I think Gray has got the wrong channel though. He says morning Jamie with tunes. Wrong channel, mate. but yeah, let's get right into it. And Neil, how are you doing, mate? After a day has passed really since the last game.
Probably as depressed as everyone else. I was wondering if we should make a new version of that stream intro where it does things like, and it's 6 games in a row without a goal scored at the King Power. It's another XG of minus 200. No, that might be a bit depressing, but yeah, I'm not doing so good. Hope you're all right though, Locks.
Well, yeah, I just said to Michael off air, it's every week I say the same thing. I'm all right other than the football, I think that's how we're all feeling. Imran, mate, first time on Good Morning Foxes. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, not bad. Like I said, making my debut this morning. Hopefully I can have a better performance than our lads on the pitch this season.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael, mate, what's going on?
Slightly under the weather. That 9:30 sort of start caught me off guard a little bit. It didn't feel early until that alarm went off. But yeah, it's the hope that kills you, isn't it, boys? It's the hope that kills you.
Yeah, well, like every Sunday, I woke up 20 minutes ago. So yeah, we're all ready. We're all ready for the action. Right. First things first. There's a lot to talk about. Let's get through some of the comments, actually. So Peter says, RVN looked like a deer in the headlights at the Bees after the match interview. Morning Foxes looking forward to this. I don't think Rudkin will be sacked. The club must not be able to pay the compensation, must finish the season and decide to leave after. I don't think, if you're talking about Rudkin or Ruud, I don't know if you want to clarify, but I don't think there'd be too much compensation to sack Rudkin. I'm sure he's on more money than we are, but probably not mega money. Zaid says, morning, everyone. Good morning to you as well, Craig. Kunal as well, Andreas. And finally, I'll read this comment here, which says, the club gave up and accepted relegation from the January window, Ant says. So, yeah, we'll talk a bit about that later as well. Right. First things first. Again, I know we touched on it briefly there, but now the dust has settled, Anil, what is just your thoughts on that game on Friday night, mate?
Awful, man. I just felt so bad afterwards. Look, I think a lot of us had accepted relegation for a long time, but that was the first time where you definitely saw the players just give up. And I think when to be honest with you, loads of people leaving at half an hour has summed it up, and you can't blame them. It's Friday night. Have a good time. Don't watch that crock of beep. So yeah, pretty bad. And then yeah, Wolves won. Look, I think it was inevitable at some point. Like, whilst there was always a small gap, there was always like the chance. You're telling me there's a chance? There's a chance of it coming back. But as soon as it gets to 5 points, and the thing is, 5 points already, I don't think we're going to get closer to that from getting out of the drop zone. We're not going to get back-to-back wins. Are we even going to get another win? Maybe we will, maybe towards the end of the season, but that's the nail in the coffin, I'm afraid. So very depressing. I think we all knew it would happen, but I think there's a way to get relegated. If it went down to the last couple of games and you thought we're still in with a chance, that would be good. This, I think, is the worst, where just the towel has been thrown in and people don't even care. Very sad to see. What's happened to our Leicester?
Yeah, I mean, Imran, Anil mentioned points that I remember earlier in the season, probably when Cooper was still here, actually. We had like an opportunity to go 5 points clear of Wolves. And I mean, and at the time we were saying things like, "Oh, okay, 5 points ahead of Wolves. That's good." But now they've done it to us, and there's only a handful of games left. Really, I mean, it's not looking good, is it, mate?
No, it's not looking good. Like, it's just one of those seasons where, like Anil just summed it all up. Really, we were hoping that we'd get in a relegation. Like we'd been for a chance. At least we'll be in for a chance to survive. Even Ruud said it when he took over that he'll go to the last game of the season. But boy, he's got that wrong, hasn't he? It's not going to go to the last game. It's probably, I think we'll be done by Easter, to be honest, at the way it's going at the moment.
Yeah.
And on Anil's point as well, like Friday night, we actually did play well for 10 minutes, Anil, didn't we? That 10 minutes, right? We did play well. But then we always have this 20-minute spell where the players just don't seem bothered, which we'll probably come on to, during the show. But yeah, I think we were okay for 10 minutes and then it just went tits up, didn't it, after that? So yeah, not great.
Yeah, Michael, are you agreeing with that? Because I do. I think we're either performance FC or, as Anil's put in the chat, 10-minute FC. I mean, we just don't have 90-minute performances, and that is why we lose games.
It's hard not to agree with everything you guys have said. I'm most disappointed because I went into that game with some degree of confidence. I thought Brentford were going to give up chances, and they kind of did in the first 5-10 minutes. Go on, and he'll do the hands again. We had Vardy through on goal. Woyo had that chance as well. And then it's like in a boxing match when they throw a punch and you go, that didn't hurt me at all. And then you can let your guard down and attack. And it's exactly what Brentford did, and they just rolled us over. Huge gaps between the defense and the midfield and forwards, which is just one long ball over the top every time, and it's so easy to get through us. I can't say that they're not trying, because I think the players are trying out there, but yeah, we were just absolutely ran through. It was quite painful to watch.
Yeah. Mr. Fatawi said, I think it's time for the great escape. RVN looked like he had been crying in the aftermatch interview. I wonder why. Another manager thrown under the bus, says Ivan. And Ant says, I'm not Cooper's biggest fan, but he's 10 times the manager, Ruud. Well, we'll talk a little bit about that, don't worry. But yeah, I think you're all right. I mean, it's just so predictable. I mean, I understand. I mean, we've had little arguments, as Anil knows, and Imran knows, actually, in one of the group chats we're in all week, really, we were arguing because Kate and Manny, forever the optimist, although I think Manny's turned now as well. They keep telling me to be positive, and I just like, what are you seeing? What are you seeing to be positive? I just can't see it. I'm sorry, I can't see it. And I've predicted it all week. I said, look, yes, Arsenal, decent performance for 80 minutes, good performance for 80 minutes, of course, right? But that's because it's a big team. They turn up against the big teams. We've seen it all season long. They turn up, and then the following game, when we play some, I won't be disrespectful to Brentford, but I was going to call them a tin pot team, but that's just a joke. But we don't turn up. We don't turn up, and we get absolutely punished. And you've seen it now. We've been hammered against Brentford twice, Wolves, Everton. At this point, I mean, yeah.
Don't forget as well, Locks, that Arsenal didn't have a strike force, right, when we played them. So it was a slightly easier for us to defend. So it was like that performance. Because if I'm telling you now, if they had even Gabriel Jesus, if he was fit, he would have destroyed us.
Well,
the games where we've looked best are, Arsenal with no strikers, Tottenham with half a team injured, Man United literally can't score a goal, and we're like, wow, yeah, we're looking good, and then we play against someone. It's just, yeah. You get
Man City off form as well, right? We look good against Man City, but they hadn't won a game for like 8 games when they played us, and they still beat us.
Yeah, and I was listening to Big Strong Leicester Boys podcast in the week, and I can't remember who it was on there who said, but they said that the Arsenal result will actually, with time, it will actually look worse because they're just, they're struggling at the moment. And look at that, they got beat by West Ham, right? Their title chances are all but over now as well. So, trying to attack with the oldest front three in the league ain't ideal. Well, let's talk a little bit about that. I don't want to bore everyone too much. I mean, Manny isn't here, so you've heard it all from Manny for a long time. So let's get everybody else's view on it. Anil, I think you've been kind of in the middle, Anil, all season really, between myself and Manny about like youth versus experience. Because Manny's all like pace, only pace. Yeah. I don't care about experience. Whereas obviously you're a bit more level-headed about that. But at this point, I mean,
No, Manny is right, but it's not so much to do with the age, it's the physical attribute, which is pace, right? I think like Linford Christie won the 100 meters gold at 36 or something like that. So it's still possible to be fast when you're quite old. Hard to do it in football. But yeah, we've just got, I mean, you've seen it so many times where like Vardy runs through and he's out of breath by the time he even gets to the ball. I feel sorry for him, and it's not aided by having front three. But I'm sure we'll get into this now. But having this very sort of slow, cautious attack, it worked in the Championship when teams are parking the bus, but Premier League is completely changed. It's transition football these days. As soon as the other team makes a mistake, it's how quickly can you get from that position to generating a goal-scoring opportunity. And the faster and more efficient you can do that, the more likely you are to score. Even the best teams like Liverpool can still do that, even though they have a lot of possession. And I think we're the worst at doing that because we take too long, we haven't got the quality, and that's why the attack is really blunt, although it has been all season. So, look, I've said this before. I think ultimately, if you really look back at this, I would honestly go as far as saying that as soon as we made our decision to appoint Steve Cooper, the season was over. He has done a better job than Ruud. You've got to say that. But what reason I will say that is just because the players that were brought in, like, why did we get these cloggers? Why didn't we get faster players? Like, I just don't get that. And I really don't understand not bringing in at least one properly fast winger. Like, it's obvious playing a 38-game season and the fact that Yunus Akgun left, like, you got two fast, tricky wingers. Is it likely that one of them will get injured at some point during the season? I wonder. Would it be useful to... I thought we'd get two. We didn't even get one. Crazy. So that set us up for defeat. We didn't get a striker. Edouard, I don't know. We'll keep getting onto it. But Manny is right in that respect, but I don't think it's necessarily the age. It's just the attributes or the lack thereof of what we've got there in that team.
Yeah, I mean, Imran, you've said all season long the squad isn't just good enough, but talk to me about the forwards, the attackers in particular.
Yeah. No, it's just, again, I think someone mentioned it on the comments. You can't go in a Premier League season with a strike force that's over 100 years old. It's simple as that. Dyche called over Reed. He's one of those players that you'd want to bring on for the last 10, 15 minutes to steady the ship. Same as Jordan Ayew. He's already proven that this season. When he comes on, he usually has an impact. But they're not starters, and you need to play with pace down the sides. You need to stretch teams. And unfortunately, we just do not have that width in our team that is required for Jamie Vardy to feed from. So that's where we are at the moment. I mean, look, as Anil touched on, you need pace, right? And what does pace give you? It gives you that ability to take on a man. I can't find a player in our team that actually beats a man. Like, which player beats a man? Like, we used to have Riyad Mahrez, Demarai Gray. I didn't really like Demarai Gray, but he used to go past a man. Even Jeffrey Schlupp used to beat a man. You know what I mean? So that's what we're missing, is we don't have a player that, like, honestly speaking, like, I'll ask all three of you, which player consistently can beat a man, like do a shimmy, drop a shoulder and go past a man and break those lines? We don't have a player like that. We just simply don't.
Well, we do.
Well, FaZe can beat his own goalkeeper quite often.
Yeah, exactly. But no, like, we just don't need... Yeah, I know what you're going to say, Locks, that we have got a player in Fatawu, but he's injured.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So, but we don't have any other player that can actually beat a man. And this all started, like I said, I think even if you're a slow player, you can still beat a man with a bit of trickery, right? But I think because our players, and I keep saying this, were brainwashed over the last 3 years on playing this passing style of football, the first option they think about is, let me play it safe. Let me just keep the ball and give the ball to one of my teammates, rather than saying, right, I'm going to get this ball and I'm going to take a man on. I'm going to play football today. I'm 47 years old, right? And I'm playing against 23-year-olds, but I'll give it a go. I'll try to take on a 19-year-old. But our players won't do that. They just won't.
Sign him up.
So you're Jordan Ayew, basically, yeah? Or Deeper Reed?
Exactly.
Which one? Yeah. Michael, I mean, what did you make to obviously what the boys have said there just about the forward line? Because there's no beating around the bush. They are slow, and I've tried to give Ayew in particular a bit, the benefit of the doubt, because I think at times this season, not even just his earlier goals against Southampton and Ipswich, but more recently, he has created some chances, but it's just not good enough. And I don't think I properly realise it until I watch another Premier League game, another team, and I see their wingers like just balling out, beating men like Imran said. I mean, I remember watching the Everton game the other week in Dyche for Everton, and I'm like, oh, what a player he is compared to what we've got.
I find it really hard to talk about the wingers without consistently repeating myself. It's a subject that I spoke on when I was last on this podcast, a subject I spoke with many of my friends. Leicester just doesn't have good wingers. That's a fact. Well, at least no good fit wingers. I don't rate Ayew. I don't rate Bobby Decordova-Reid. I don't rate Matt Vadidi that highly. And Fatou's injured. Buonanotte and Bilal are our most creative players. They're both 10s. We need to play dual 10s, as that's my sort of opinion on it, have our most creative players on the pitch. But unfortunately, that is not the way that Ruud van Nistelrooy plays. Did some degree of research into how Ruud lines up a team from just his PSV days. Now it's a really, really small sample size, so it's hard to actually gain information on it. But when he was at PSV, he played with really fast wingers. Noni Madueke, Gakpo isn't very quick, but he's tricky. And they just they beat a man, put the ball in the box. And that's actually what we do. But unfortunately, we're crossing the ball to Jamie Vardy. They were crossing the ball to Luke de Jong. He's 6'2". He wins every header. He either knocks the ball on, it goes in. I did this. I looked at the stats, so I might get them slightly wrong. It's just in the top of the head here. I think we crossed the ball 27 times against Brentford. 3 from Ayew, 6 from Bobby Decordova-Reid, and 6 from Christensen. Don't get me started on Christensen's crossing. It's awful. It doesn't get 2 feet off the ground. But there's no one in the box to head the ball. Jamie Vardy isn't going to win the header. It's just not going to happen. I've only seen him play like 40 minutes of football, and apparently he's not causing any issues. I'm beginning to wonder maybe we need to start Odsonne Edouard up top just to have something different in there. If that's what we're doing, let's stick our only 6'2" striker on the pitch and see if he can just knock a ball in.
Well, the Edouard thing, I mean, we said it, I mean, Manny said it the other week actually, but I think we're all thinking it. Well, if he's at the club, we weren't able to get rid of him. Why not utilize him? Why not try to utilize him anyway, at least? And I saw an article in the week, where they said, oh, Odsonne Edouard is known to not put up a fuss that he doesn't play. And we're like, no wonder. You know what I mean? He's on 90 grand a week, for crying out loud. I'm sure he's buzzing with his life at Leicester at the moment. But Anil, do you agree with that? Would you maybe just give Edouard a go? Because whether it was a panic buy or not, he is a Leicester player until June, and we're struggling to score goals.
I'm not sure, because I think the problem is that with certain loan players, it's like, how much effort do you think they're going to put in? I mean, there's a reason why they've agreed to the move in the first place. Like, I get what you're saying from the tactical setup, why it could work, but I think I'd rather try players that I think there could be some kind of future. I don't think you could. Like, it's weird because Buonanotte is also on loan, but putting him in the team and trying to make him the main man, I wouldn't be against, because he actually seems attitude-wise like he would, try and make something happen. But no, I just don't think with Edouard. But you've got to try something. I mean, literally, the big problem with Ruud is like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But Ruud, it's been broken with 10 losses in 11 games. What are you doing, lad? I mean, that's crazy. We've given Cooper pelters, but he's got to take more pelters for that, for continuing with that front three and expecting anything to change. So yeah, I just think it's a question of attitude of Edouard.
I'm hoping he saw what we all kind of saw. Now, the game might have already just, Brentford most probably geared down. But like, particularly in that second half when we had Buonanotte and Bilal, I thought they had a couple moments where they linked up nicely. Steffi, I'm not entirely convinced on, but, he's a tricky winger. He offers us something different. I hope he saw what we all saw in that second half, in that needs to be the front four, or, you could change Vardy and Daka if you want. I think they're in quite a similar position at this point.
Do you know what, though? I've got a feeling he won't. And I think the reason he won't is you can see that he's got, like, in his head, a clear attacking structure that he wants the players to follow. And especially Buonanotte doesn't do that. So the reason why I think Steve Cooper did so well with Buonanotte is his strategy was more basically everyone behind Buonanotte, your job is to keep kind of solid. And then Buonanotte, you can kind of do whatever you want. And actually, it kind of worked, right? Because then you got someone who's like got almost like a free role, can do whatever he wants. And he's got the capability of making moments of magic. And the way that we sort of play in, because we're playing deeper, it actually means the few times that we get a chance, it's actually likely to be a higher quality chance. Now, I'm not saying we should go back to that, but I think that's the sort of system that Buonanotte thrives in. When he's been asked to play in this very sort of structured way, because the team isn't good enough, I think he deviates away from that. He tries to do something different. Now, the irony is that's what all us fans are like, yeah, do that, because the structured stuff you've been asked to do isn't working, right? Playing at turtle pace and snail football isn't going to work. So we're better off trying to do some kind of flair. So I don't know, maybe you're right, Michael. I hope you are. But I know what a lot of these coaches are like, where like, I don't know if you remember this last season, but there was a game where Enzo put on Yunus Akgun and then he substituted him off. So Yunus came on the pitch, I think, at 40 minutes and he took him off at 70. And the reason why managers do that is that if they're not standing in the right place or doing the right thing, they'll do that with these like firm structure. So I think we've got another one of those type of managers. And I think your facial reaction says it all.
No, we absolutely do, because I mean, just look at Koulibaly, for example. Like he's a raw talent. Going forward, he was interesting for sure, but he's a bit headless, let's say, and I can understand why he has kept picking Justin over him. But yeah, 45, 46. Was it half time? Was it just after half time? Hooked. I mean, he was on a yellow card, but yeah, I think he wants structure, but the players aren't good enough for the structure.
Well, on that topic, I will go to Imran, who has made his feelings clear about style of play and structure and all of that. Imran, I imagine you were probably disappointed that where Koulibaly went off, because he was offering something different, I suppose, like Michael said, and he was dragged.
Correct, and I think Michael just said, I think he was dragged because he got booked. Otherwise, I think he may have stayed on. But all this structure bullshit, right? Like I said, right? It's a game of football, right? It's a game of football, right? It's not that difficult. It's 11 versus 11, right? You just gotta, we just complicate the game too much now. I think you got players like Ruud and Enzo, or managers like Ruud, Enzo, Brendan, etc. They've just complicated the game. We just need to play rock and roll football now. We're in a relegation dogfight. Yes, we can play more expansive stuff once we've got like players that are fighting for the shirt, we're getting results, then we can start changing it about a little bit. But right now we're in a scrap, right? So we need players that are going to scrap, forget these systems and stuff like that. I remember under the Martin O'Neill days, when I started watching Leicester like religiously back then, we were a boring team. We were really boring. We had the slowest defense, right? We had Matt Elliott, Jerry Taggart, Steve Walsh at the back, right? They weren't the fastest of players. They were slow, in fact. But we were getting results. We were sitting deep and then playing on the break. And that's what we should be doing now. It's just so depressing watching our team at the moment, defending the way they are with this structured approach. Players getting confused sometimes on what you saw Ndidi and Sumare on Friday. I didn't think they knew what they were doing. One was pushing, one was sitting, then both would push, both would sit. It just looked a complete mess, especially second half. So yeah, that's my thoughts on these structured systems and managers complicating the game too much when it's really a simple game of football.
I want to move on to more about the manager, but just before we do so, I want to bring up Victor Christiansen, because Matt Piper, former Leicester player and obviously radio Leicester, I don't know, pundit, presenter, whatever you want to call him, he put a tweet out after the game talking about Victor Christiansen, saying, well, he actually said it in the post-match, actually, saying that Victor Christiansen for him is one of the only players that puts in everything, right, and leaves it all out on the pitch. And he says, I would rather a player like that start over others that maybe have more quality but don't leave it all out on the pitch. And that led to a bit of reaction online. A lot of people, calling him out for it, saying he's crap, Victor's crap, and all this. I mean, what do you make to it all, Anil? How important is passion and giving 100% effort, let's say, over technical ability? Where do you think it is, mate? Because there's a big talk about it at the moment.
Victor Christiansen put a lot of passion out on the pitch for Leicester last season, didn't he, when we got relegated to the Championship? Oh, no, wait, he left the first opportunity he could to go to another team. So I'm not sure I entirely believe that. He's got a good engine. I'll give him that. But I would actually say, personally, as a fan, you would rather players that try rather than give up. And I think, like I said, that was the sad thing in that game. Look at Wout Faye's reaction as soon as the second goal went and he gave up, threw in the towel. You don't want to see that. We always look at the start of the season, because we thought PSR was going to hit us as well. We all basically thought we're going to get relegated, but there's a way to get relegated, isn't there? Even in the Great Escape season, had we got relegated, still overall, you just said, yeah, but the team tried really hard. We very rarely got battered. We were competitive in every game. We just didn't have the quality. I'd much rather go down like that than this is a little bit, I don't know if it's the same as 2 seasons ago where it's sort of overpaid prima donnas, but it feels like mercenary FC, really. You've just got a really bad collection of players there. There's maybe a handful, like Wilf and Didi's one of them, maybe a few others that actually want to play. And I don't know about you, but like, it's so jealous, right? For us, probably it's a dream to be a professional footballer, and some of these guys are, and they're just not giving a crap. Really, really frustrating. So, yeah, I think I would rather see people that have passion, even if they're not that good. But I'm not entirely sure I believe that with Victor Christensen.
But don't you think, Anil, right, that passion should be like, I think a few people have mentioned it on the comments, that should be number one. Every player should be showing passion when they're putting on that shirt. Every single player should be showing passion, whether they're on 40k, 50k, 20k. That's your job. So that's a given. But like you said, there's a couple of our players, or maybe more than that, just don't show it on the pitch.
Well, what do you think, Michael?
You need all your 11 to show that passion, right? Including the goalkeeper all the way to the striker. Every 11 have to be fighting for each other.
Well, definitely in a scrap. Otherwise, you got no chance, which is where we don't have any.
Yeah. No, Mike. I mean, I kind of agreed with Matt Piper because the year we got relegated, I think obviously that was Christensen's first season. It was only 6 months, right? He came in January, and I feel like, I mean, he would be a player that would he would celebrate and fist bump the crowd at corners and clearances and all of that. He looked like a player that did really care, and I think it's somewhat similar this season. But how important do you think that actually is? If he can't defend, basically.
Yeah, I mean, passion is the bare minimum. That goes without saying. I think he had a really tough matchup. I think Mbeumo is a proper player. But that being said, he did some unforgivable things, like letting him in on his strong foot. It's like that's pretty basic defending, I think. And I mean, I played at very, very low level, but I mean, you show a player onto their weak foot. I don't think he gets helped massively by Ayew. I'm trying to I don't know the exact minute. It was in the first half, maybe like 25, 30 minutes in. Collins just sort of walked past Ayew. And it's like, that if he's getting doubled up on by Mbeumo and everyone else, like, he's going to have a difficult game anyway. I don't think Mavididi particularly helps defensively either. Yeah, I think he's a really average player who tries really hard. And I guess I would rather that than... I'm trying to think of an example of a player. Well, we said Wild-Face. I'll have to chuck that guy under the bus again. Again, an average player doesn't try hard.
Yeah. Let's see what some of the comments are saying about this. They're not very forgiving, to be honest, from what I've seen. Mark says 70% of our players are not good enough and only playing for the wages. Chris says it's a baseline to try. Mm. Passion then calls for the academy boys or local lads to play. Quality is more important, but you need a good personality and mentality across the team. Nobody's shown they care apart from Bilal, and I'm struggling beyond that. When you're saying passion, you mean actually try the whole game. If I turned up for work and didn't put a shift in, I'd be sacked. Possibly just talking about next season. The player who actually care at the moment are Vardy, Bilal, and Wilf, maybe Mads. That's it. Paul says passion is giving 100% every game, leaving nothing on the pitch. And Moxie just nice and simply says it's just sad, which I think is fair. There was one other one. I don't know if you commented on that. He just says it's a team of journeymen. And I'm like, that's most probably correct, right?
Yeah.
When you've sold the soul of the team, you need players like, I mean, we needed the money, but like, this is why a player like Dewsbury Hall was so important, because he knew what it meant to actually be a Leicester player and what it meant to the fans. Yes, it's when you look at that team, they haven't been there long enough. Bar the Vardys and Ndidis really haven't really been there long enough to know what it's all about. And they'll most probably just be like, I'll get another club after this. It's fine.
I mean, would any of you maybe then look to pull Victor out for someone like Luke Thomas, who has grown up? I think he's Syston. He's played for Leicester at different levels all his life. I mean, would you make that change, Janelle?
I mean, there's an argument to say change the whole 11 after that shambolic performance, isn't there? I think you got to do something. I think the problem is, it's been said a few times on this channel, it is a bit just stirring the shit around. It doesn't matter what order or configuration you put it out there. We basically just don't have it. Maybe there's two players that are good that you probably have in every team, But to be honest with you, I would for at least one game, because I think when people have a game that's that shockingly bad, you can't keep them in the team, because what sort of message does it send? The whole point you're supposed to have, that we built this squad to have supposedly 2 players for every position to be competing with one another. So the key, exactly, just saying it out loud just makes you laugh your head off, but supposedly it's true. So that's the idea. If someone has a bad game, and especially if you're playing in a system, the next one should be able to come in and do the system. So yeah, you shouldn't play the next game. That's my opinion. He's not the only one that should be in that position. There should be several people like that.
Yeah. But sorry, one more thing before we move to the manager. I mean, what is everybody's thoughts on this? Because we've spoken about it a lot recently. The 2 most promising academy products at the moment, Jake Evans and Jeremy Monga, I believe is one a winger and one a striker, or are they both wingers? Yeah, one striker and winger. So
Yes.
I mean, what do we think, lads? Do we just say fuck it? There's nothing to lose. Nothing. It can't get worse. So put them in, or is that? There was a debate on it on Radio Leicester in the week saying, do you do that to a young player? Do you put them in the firing line? I think Matt Piper's argument for it was they don't. You just tell them you don't care. There's nothing they can do that will make Leicester fans go, oh, it's his fault. Like, Leicester fans will not put the blame on Jake Evans or Jeremy Monga if they come in and make a mistake. Whereas if you continue with Ayew, they will continue getting the slack. What do you think, Michael? Go on.
I think when you're 3-0 down, it's not going to hurt to try one of them. I can't remember if it was you guys I was listening to or someone else. They made like a really valid point in comparing sort of like Tottenham's injury woes, having to play Archie Gray and Bergvall, who, I mean, they are much further along their progression than the likes of a Jeremy Monga or Jake Evans. But they had a lot of games to play, and they would have learned a lot from that and going to be better players for it. I think we almost need to give a player like Jeremy Monga some game time, because if we don't, he is just going to get picked up by one of the big boys anyway. We need to give him that opening. I would have loved to have seen him play in something like an FA Cup game against some weaker side, or a game that didn't matter so much. I could see why you're not starting them in a game against Brentford. He kind of wants a bit of experience there. But at some point in this season, we're going to need to roll the dice on these players, because we are going to most probably have to rely on them in the Championship next year. Was that roll the dice or roll the dice? No, we're going to talk about it in a sec. But anyway, we'll get to that soon.
Imran, young players, mate. I mean, Monga, Jake Evans, a lot's been made of them. I think Jake Evans is like the numbers he's putting out. Is it under 21s? They're like nothing they've ever seen. I mean, would you give them a chance?
Of course, I'd give him a chance. I mean, I wouldn't start them, but I'd put them on the bench and give them 10, 15 minutes, just to get them bleeded into the system. But we don't even do that. We don't even play Facundo Boanate. So how are we going to play Jeremy Monga?
Michael Golding as well.
Yeah, Golding, we bought him for, how much was he? 5 million from Chelsea. He's not had a sniff either. So if it, like Anil said, if it's not broken, why fix it? But the thing is, everything's broken at the moment, so he has to find fixes. If it means playing the youth and getting a bit of young blood in there, why not? If we're going down, let's give these players some experience, and we're going to have to build a team around these guys next season anyway, if this transfer embargo rumor is true, etc. So I'd definitely put him on the bench, 100%.
What about you, Anil? What are you thinking, mate? The youngsters.
So to be honest, I think there's a lot of hypocrisy in our fan base, right? Because I'll give you another Leicester City Youth Academy product. It's called Casey McAteer. How many people would want to see him start? People throw pelters at him all the time. But you're expecting a younger player with less experience to come in and all of a sudden be the answer. It's not impossible. You do get it from time to time. But as someone who's actually worked at that level and worked with players, right, you're talking about people who aren't even physically ready yet, right? Unless maybe, I don't know, maybe Jeremy Monga is. That's possible, right? He's just had the growth spurt already. I think people have got to align their expectations. But to be fair, giving them 10, 15 minutes, there's no harm in doing that, right? So for that, I don't have a problem. But I think it's one of those, this happens all the time, right? Team is struggling, so all of a sudden a player that isn't involved in the first team is the answer. It was Tom Cannon, it was Patson Daka, it's Odson Edouard. Then that player comes into the team and they're equally crap, if not more crap than the player that they replace. And now all of a sudden the person that they did replace, like Vardy or Mavadidi, no, what are we doing? Put them back in, they're much better. And it just turns out that they're both bad. So that's what I think will happen. I think if you look at it realistically, those players I hope will be the future. But look at, for example, Will Alves. He didn't really start. He's been allowed to go to the Championship. Michael Golding. I was thinking the reason why they weren't sent out on loan by Cooper early on, because he did try both of them in a pre-season friendly, is that he was planning on using them in the cup games and slowly kind of bringing them into the team around Christmas. But he didn't do that. He went back on that plan, which is a bit weird. So, look, I'm all for it. I think the way that Leicester go forward, to be honest with you, we've been saying it all here. We've got all these journeymen and mercenaries. That is the long-term future of the club, especially as we've got Seagrave. It should be to try and develop people that actually care about the club, want to do well, and continuing this talent and occasionally selling one of the top stars and using that to fund other players. I think that absolutely should be the model, and we've got to start doing it. But those players, they should probably be the slightly older ones. I think Jeremy Wonga and Jake Evans are probably a bit too young. It should have been Will Alves. And yeah, maybe Michael Golding's come up from here. And I think he's another good one to think about, because he did, I think, play a couple of games for Chelsea in the cup already. So again, I'm not sure why hasn't he either gone out on loan or been featured in and around the team. I have heard some rumours about him. I'm not sure.
Well, let's move on to the manager himself, Ruud van Nistelrooy. Now, I remember us giving Cooper absolute shit, right? Because he said when he first joined the club that he wants to play attacking, exciting football. And you know, by the time he was sacked, we turned around and went, "You fucking liar." However, Ruud van Nistelrooy, when he joined the club, he was very adamant that he was not a stubborn manager. Michael, was he lying? Because it seems very stubborn at the moment.
Yeah, he's incredibly stubborn. Far too stubborn. His post-match comments are really, really damning. I'm assuming you've got a screenshot to put on screen, or which you know, at this point we've all read it. Like, we all know or seen it. I can sympathise with him, right? Like, I feel like he's been sold a false promise from the board, and I think as fans feel that as well. No money actually available to us in January, bringing in just only one player. Yeah, but my biggest concern with Ruud van Nistelrooy is he's kind of gone against his own team. Like at the start, when we got those first two results against West Ham and Brighton, which Brighton was a draw, but I'll take a draw at this point. I just got the team up here. He started with Vardy, Buonanotte, Alcanus, and Casey McAteer, and Ndidi, Sumare, Christensen, Vestergaard, Cody, Justin Hermansen. And he's just he's gone the opposite way. We scored 3 goals in this match. We haven't scored in our last 10 games or something stupid like that. You mentioned a minute ago now, we wouldn't want McAteer starting. I don't mind McAteer starting personally, because he has a lot of energy about him. Mm-hmm. Then you could bring on someone like an Ayew. He's not the most creative player by all means, but I mean, yeah. The biggest question here is, do we stay with Ruud van Nistelrooy? Or do we want to stay with Ruud van Nistelrooy? I don't know if I'm punching too early here, but like, I just don't know if there is an actual better option out there for us that would actually want to come to us as well.
Are you talking more now or for next season?
Has there ever been a team that sacked 2 managers in one season ever stay up?
Probably not. I don't think
so. Most probably not. I mean, who's most probably done that? Watford. Like,
Watford, it must be. Yeah.
I kind of believe he's not actually a bad manager. I think he's got a really bad bunch of players for what he wants to do. He's also misprofiling the players that he's got. I think we should be careful what we wish for. You know, we could end up with a really crap manager, and we could, and that's not saying that Ruud van Nistelrooy is not also crap, but we could, it could get really painful for us.
Yeah, well, let's bring those comments up that you were referring to. So he said, from now on, I can only ask the players to play to their capabilities. So far, we are doing everything we can, but the level of opposition that we face is too big for us. It's difficult to compete. We get disappointed every week and then have to try and pick ourselves up. He also said something along the lines of, every team we play is better than us every week. Every team we play every week is better than us. Imran, for me, in my eyes, who looks at football quite simply like you, I suppose, he's just basically said the players are shit. Basically,
exactly. That's what he said, which I was saying from the start of the season. Like, we've gone into 5 transfer windows, I think. I think we mentioned this. And every time we've come out of a transfer window, the last 5 transfer windows, we've actually ended up with a weaker squad than what we started with in the previous transfer window. So that's not helped Ruud, Cooper, whoever it's been. But as far as Ruud is concerned, I think we should stick with him now. Like I said, we should have stuck with Cooper as well. I think we should have given him until at least Christmas and then made a decision on him, because we were not in the relegation zone. Let's make that clear. Cooper was fulfilling his goal for the season, which was to keep us up, but we got rid of him. Now we've got Ruud van Nistelrooy. Again, I think we need to be loyal with him, which we weren't with Cooper. So we have to keep him if he stays. I mean, there's an argument to say that at the end of the season, he may walk. Why would he want to manage in the Championship? But I think he would stay if we gave him assurances to say, look, you've got an opportunity now. Yeah, we're going to get rid of the dross. Like we've got a load of dross like Cody, Vestergaard, Christiansen, Sumare. I know there's arguments on Sumare whether he performs and stuff, but my argument is he's still not scored, he still don't contribute to goals, etc., etc. So he's got decisions to make, right? And then he can start building his team, and hopefully in the Championship, he can get a few. You know what it's like, guys. You win a few games, the whole mood around the place changes. We go on a bit of a run, like we did with Enzo last season, and things can change quite easily. So it's not all doom and gloom, but it's just whether Ruud wants to stay, number one, and number two is, will we give him the time next season after this shambolic season that we're having so far? Because fans' patience do run out. Fans are fickle, but I'm more than happy to give him that time to build a team, because he's just not had the opportunity. He's brought in one player, Woyo Koulibaly, and we don't even know if that was his signing, right? He might have already been a target for the club a few seasons ago or a season before that. So,
well, who signed him at Parma, mate? Enzo Maresca.
Yeah, so it might have been on Enzo's list. Yeah, see, I didn't know that. So yeah, maybe he was already on that list, right? That Enzo had identified.
And Neil, what do you think, mate, about, because I've said to you many times, I think it's naive. I remember when Ruud came in and we said, well, if we go down, he'll be the man to bring us back up. And I said at the time, I think it's naive to think that by the summer, the fans are still wanting him. Like, you're already seeing the fans turn, like in mass numbers. So if we keep losing, I don't think he will make it to the summer. Although, can we afford to sack him? That's another question.
That depends on the club, but yeah, I think you've got to be realistic as well, because the thing is that if you go into the pre-season as well with negative aura around the club, and you've got, like, look what happened with Man United and Ten Hag, right? They decided to keep him on, but they I'm sure even he himself knew he was going to get sacked. So they've messed it up, and they've ended up signing players now. Then they bring in another manager who wants a different system. Like, you're better off getting like a clean break. And maybe that's what the club should be doing right now, is looking at other people and say, look, we're going to be in a Championship. This is going to be your budget. We probably are going to have a points deduction embargo, but you've got all these facilities. What can you do with it? That might be a good idea. I have a tough one. Like I said at the time when Ruud came in, that like whoever got that job, it was such a tough job, right? Because you've got no time whatsoever to work with the players, and you're coming into the busiest period of the year, Christmas, right? And then you're going to have the window, and then you've already got a squad that is provably one of the worst in the league. So you're almost set up to failure, right? Especially with bad morale. It's possible. I still felt it was a better chance than the previous manager, but it was always going to be tough. But what you're seeing is what can easily happen the other way, which is it goes equally as bad. To be honest with you, I didn't think it'd go even worse, which it has. And now you're in a position where even if like he was being brought on to say, well, look, if we go down, we'll keep you for next season. The issue is, as you say, is that the fans will have turned against him, and therefore it might just be sensible just to move him on, because otherwise, it's just going to end all in tears. Because what's going to happen, as Imran's pointing out, is that let's say we start next season in the Championship and it's, let's say, first 4 games and it's like 2 draws, 2 wins. That might not be enough already. We get a shock loss or something like that. And then they'll have to throw, because people will really turn. They'll be like, you can't do a Luton or anything like that. So let's look at it that way. It's funny. I'm looking like a lot of comments, especially surprising Ant like properly going in for Ruud and stuff like that, which is maybe fair. But I would just say this, right? Like, the reason why with Cooper we were against him is that if you looked at like the underlying data, what it showed is that like we were properly getting away with it, and comfortably the 3 worst teams in the league were Southampton, Leicester and Ipswich, right? And basically that you could see that if you take a snapshot of 10 games, I'm pretty sure we did the show on it, you could see that we should have conceded like 8 more goals than we did, but basically Mads Manson was Jesusing out us of games. We were scoring way more than we should have scored. We were being way too clinical, and these things are going to catch you up because you can't sustain it for 38 games in a row. And all that's happened is we reverted to the mean. I think, no, to be fair, actually, if you look at the underlying data, it's a fact that Ruud's made us even worse. So that is fair. So look, for what it's worth, if people say they want to get rid of him, fair enough. Like, I've got to make my own bed. If I'm saying, well, look at the data, how can I say, oh, we'll keep Ruud when he's performing even worse? So let's see how it goes. I think it depends on what the fans are. I think what I would ask is, like, for everyone on this panel, like, do you think he can vibe with the club? Do you think we'll get behind him? When he first came in, you could see that the fans did take to him more because he was a name, but is that enough? I don't know. You've got to, in an ideal world, you want to find someone that just like gels with the fan base, or who we are as Leicester, gets the identity. It's funny, even though Enzo did well for us, I don't think he actually did that, to be honest with you. I think even the same with Brendan Rodgers, even though you've got to say, compared to the last couple of managers we've had, there's levels and stuff like that. Yeah, that's where I'm going. A bit rambly, sorry.
Well, if we did pull the trigger, there is one man that everyone seems to be talking about, which is Sean Dyche. I mean, look, the club got a lot of shit from fans for the Steve Cooper appointment because it was kind of it seemed to go against the grain of the type of manager they've looked at previously. I know Dean Smith came in, but that was for a firefight, right? That was for the last few games, and I'm not trying to rewrite history here. I think at the time there wasn't that much anger about Dean Smith being the one to come in. I think people thought he is probably a good fit for what we need right now. Do we think Sean Dyche could keep Leicester City up, boys? What are we thinking?
His greatest achievement would be managing to get Leicester to keep a clean sheet. Because that's the way he plays, isn't it? Like, he took Burnley to European football, but getting a clean sheet out of these bastards, man. We can't score goals, and look at what Dyche was doing with Everton near the end. They also couldn't score goals. David Moyes has come in. They're sticking 4 past teams, us namely.
Yeah,
I don't think he would come to us personally. I don't think he'd have any interest, or there'd be a clause which would be like, if you go down to the Championship, we're just cutting our losses. Because I think he sees himself as a better manager than this. What he did with Everton last year was amazing, but yeah. So I want it to work for Ruud van Nistelrooy because I don't know. I kind of liked it. It might just be the name thing. I liked when he came in. I liked the way he spoke. He had a bit of arrogance about him. I don't know. He sort of the way when we lined up in those opening games, he gave me like a bit of hope, but he really needs to tighten that defense up, and it might end up having to be really quite boring football. But we must probably need to just stick an extra centre mid in there, as opposed to being Bilal as a number 10, maybe a Harry Winks as 3/8s almost, and then Bilal and Buonanotte on the wings. Just really become more difficult to beat. Like, we're so easy to beat, and the goals.
What Cooper was doing, he played 3 CDMs and he got pelters for it. Yeah,
and that's what Dyche will do, right? And I don't think I agree that I don't think Dyche will come even, because we've got a soft centre in our team. We've not got no scrappers in that team. I used to think Ndidi was a scrapper and fast as well, but they've just become soft. I just don't, and that's what Dyche wants. If you look at his Burnley team, his Everton team, he had big, strong centre backs. Every single player is fighting for the ball. That's what Dyche will instill in that team. But we just haven't got I don't think we've got players to play any system at the moment. That's how bad it is at the moment.
We've not got players to play football, basically.
Exactly. We can't play the game.
And Dyche, he wouldn't be the right fit to bring us up either, would he? Let's be honest. Like,
well,
are we?
I would question that, Logs. I was about to literally ask that. I think, to be honest with you, for me, it's pointless bringing another person in now because we're basically condemned. So anyone that's come in is going to happen what happens to Ruud, where you're getting a bad sort of, you're just going to look crap no matter who you are, right? So it's a little bit unfair in that regard. But if we're talking about next season and clean slate, I mean, Sean Dyche has got teams out of the Championship multiple times. I think he would probably do it quite comfortably with us. You might even say that if we then had a new team in the Premier League, he might even have a good chance of keeping them up. The problem is that then you'll get like a baseline, but can you evolve from that baseline? I think the issue is that we've got to change our own mindset as well, right? So because a few seasons ago we were battling to get in Europe, we were trying to play quite technical football with Brendan Rodgers, we had good attacking things, you know, we beat Southampton 9-0, etc., etc. That's our expectations. But all those players have gone, right? So you got to reset your expectations. And to be fair to Steve Cooper, what he was trying to do with the team coming up, he was like, look, I just need to play a sort of more attritional style that's going to work. And I'm not going to be popular for it, but it will keep us in a division. And then maybe next season or the season afterwards, we can try and be a bit more expansive, right? That's the reality. Otherwise, what's going to happen is we're going to do like a Norwich. And I think this is probably more likely, which it will go down, then probably get another exciting manager, probably play quite good stuff. I don't know if it would come back straight away, probably not because of the PSR, but maybe season 2 we do. But then will we be in a position to stay up the next time we come up? I don't know. I mean, to be fair, you can cross that bridge when we get to it, maybe. But I don't know. I think it's a lot of people putting shade on Sean Dyche's name. But I mean, for example, I felt, you know, in 2022, when we were really, really struggling under Brendan, I thought at that point it was Dyche time. And instead we went to Everton.
Say. Exactly. Yeah. That's I wanted Dyche then when Brendan was struggling, but yeah, we left it too late then.
I hate the narrative online that Steve Cooper had us in this like really almighty position that, you know, the word entitled has been chucked around at us fans quite a bit recently. And they're like, oh, well, he had you comfortably clear. I'm like, no. There was like 2 points in it, and one of the teams below us was Crystal Palace, who have gone on an incredible run. That narrative needs to change. Steve Cooper, we were walking into the relegation zone with Steve Cooper. Unfortunately, Ruud van Nistelrooy, we've just sprinted to it.
Correct. Yeah. I think that's fair. You are right though. Like, I mean, we've said it on this stream ourselves that Ruud van Nistelrooy on paper, we are worse now than we were under Steve Cooper. But there's no doubt in my mind. I don't know about any of you. We would still be in the bottom 3 if Steve Cooper was there. Like without question.
I don't know. Look, see, that's where I kind of disagree.
Here he is.
yeah, this is where I kind of disagree because look, we were out of the relegation zone when Cooper was manager, right? We were out of the relegation. We weren't playing great. I admit that, but there were players, and this is an issue with the squad in general. The players went to top, right? That's the rumor. The players went to top, right? So they weren't even playing for Cooper. So Cooper had us out of the relegation zone. Imagine this, right? Just picture this. We're out of the relegation zone, but players are still going to the owner and saying, "Oh, we don't like the brand of football." Oh, you guys stupid. You're out of the relegation zone and you don't like the way you're playing football. He's keeping you out of the relegation zone. Imagine if they all followed Cooper's instructions and said, right, we're going to play this pragmatic style. We're going to scrap. We're going to stay in this league and we'll be unified in this. Even though we don't like the style of football, Cooper, we're gonna follow you because you're our manager. Imagine the position we would be in right now. But our players, it's not the fans that are entitled. I think it's the players that are entitled. They think that they're Pirlo and Rodri and they can play this passing game when clearly they can't. And I think Cooper knew this. And I think we would have got better under Cooper as the season went on because if the players circumvented to his ideas, then maybe they would have pulled together and we would have been a better team. You know,
well, that is part of the reason.
I agree with him, Ran. I've got to say,
that's one argument, right?
Well, I was going to say that is part of the reason, and I know you were going to say it. This part of the reason why I don't think we'd be in the. Sorry, why I think we would be in the bottom 3 though, because they didn't like Cooper.
Correct.
So although he did have us just outside it, and that is good for the situation that he was in and that the players were in. I don't think that would have continued because, as Michael said, look at Crystal Palace. They were below us.
We'll never know.
Maybe you could argue that Wolves. Maybe you could argue we would be above Wolves because they're only 5 points ahead of us now, right? Maybe you could argue that would be the case. But
I think you're both right. I think you're both right. Is exactly what you're saying. I agree with what you're saying, Imran. But that's the thing is that if, as a manager, you've lost the dressing room, then you've lost the dressing room, which means there's no way back. So to be totally honest with you, I think with Steve Cooper, we'd actually be maybe even bottom of the Premier League.
I know. How could you have lost the dressing room, right, when you were out of the relegation? And that goes to show that there's a big problem in our club with regards to the players. They know that if we're not happy, we're going to go to top, right? And that's where the problem is, right? That's where the problem is. You can't just say, oh, we don't like the manager. We've lost him now. You know, like you said, he'd lost the dressing room. And I think there's a story out there that Vardy was not part of any of this, right? Allegedly, he didn't go to this party in Denmark and, you know, with the, you know, thank you, Enzo, or we miss you, Enzo sign. Vardy was not party to any of this, and I don't think Vardy was happy with what these players did. And these were like players like Cody, Winks, Vestergaard, etc. These are the players that were the bad eggs, I thought, in that.
Imran, I agree with you, but the thing is what's cheaper, to get rid of a manager or to get rid of 20 players? We're not the only team that have had this problem. We're basically like Diet Coke version of Man United, who've had this problem for many years as well. We are very similar parallels between the two, right?
Correct.
Except we're going to end up relegated and they're not, despite also having an awful season. So I agree with you, but that is a sort of stance. I do think that, like I said it in the summer, that like almost the first 20 minutes that Steve Cooper was going to be the most important. He's got to get the players on side right away, and he didn't. I even said, I've got the receipts for it, like the model for us staying up this season was a bit like what we did to Southampton last year, where both games against Southampton, actually Southampton had more possession than us in both games, sometimes quite heavily so, and we just killed them on the counter-attack. That was the blueprint of staying up. Just have Mavididi, Fatawu, and Vardy or Daka up front, just attack with those three. Everyone else kind of stay back. You can still play the passing football in there, right? But you're just not so concerned with holding loads of possession. Just be lethal on transition. That should have been the model. But I do feel that Cooper kind of dug his own grave, because the first thing he did is he said, no, I'm going to change it to this fullback system and I'm going to shunt Fatawu onto the side. So to be fair to the players, I still would have thought that they might think, what is this guy doing? We're literally going away from the style that we did. Anyway, look, it's all a mess. And
we always say you can just do a whole show on it, which is true. There's just so much to talk about. I mean, Michael, what do you think, just quickly, mate? Because I hear what Imran's saying and I hear what Anil's saying, and I think we're not far from each other with our opinions on this. I think we all kind of agree. And we had Ian Hume on the channel, Michael, a couple of weeks ago, and I actually asked him about the whole owner situation, how the players go directly to the owner, and he was like, no, you can't be doing that. You cannot be doing that. Yeah.
No, I mean, yeah. Who runs this club here really is, that's it's disgusting what they did. But at the time, I think the fans, we almost applauded it because we wanted Cooper out ourselves. When we saw it, we were like, yeah, sweet, they're on our side. But it actually turned out that they were just the bad eggs. Imran loved Cooper because there was no style of play. That's the reality of it, and we know what he thinks.
Let me make this clear, right? I didn't like Cooper. I just wanted us to give him a chance. That's all I want. And he wasn't my first choice. Cooper was not my first choice. But look, I went to most away games under Cooper, right? I missed the Southampton one actually. But when the fans turned against him, it was the Man United away game. I remember distinctly when we went to United. I think we lost 3-0. That's when I started hearing Cooper out chants, right? The Man United away game. But up until then, we were in games, right? The fans can say what they want. We weren't getting smashed every game. We weren't conceding. And we were in with, I remember the Arsenal game, we didn't play well against Arsenal, but we came back 2-2, and then we lost. I think we conceded 2 goals in the last minute against Arsenal at the Emirates. But we were still in these games. We weren't getting smashed, right? And I just thought that if the players, like I said, backed Cooper, right, his style of play, then we may have not been in this situation. We may not. I didn't like Cooper, don't get me wrong. I don't think he was a manager that we could have kept for 2-3 seasons. He would have been good for this season. And if we got relegated, he may have been the right manager to get us back up again, because he's done it before. But that's where I was with Cooper. I went thrilled with his appointment. I wanted David Moyes. As you know, Locks, I'm always an advocate for David Moyes. Or Graham Potter at the start of the season, but we ended up with Cooper. So we should have just stuck with him until December. I think I said yesterday to you, Locks, we should have stuck with him until January. We didn't buy anyone anyway in the transfer window. So whichever manager came in, they wouldn't have been able to do the business anyway. So we should have just given him the half the season, but we didn't. We twisted and we went with Ruud. Again, I was happy with that appointment as well. But it just hasn't worked out, guys. And look, we all want our club to survive, but it's just not happening this season. It's just been a totally shit show.
Well, that's it. We all want Leicester to do well. We just all have different opinions on how we think that happens, right? That's really that's the situation. If we had David Moyes, we wouldn't have worried about relegate. Well, he turned us down, and I think it came. Was it you, Anil, who shared the image of the salary that he's on? Was it you? How much was he on?
8
million. 8 million.
He's the third highest paid manager in the Premier League, apparently.
That's ridiculous.
I think 8 million.
You can see why he's gone.
Yeah,
8 million, a lot of money.
Yeah.
As a quick question to you guys, would you sack him now? Would you sack Ruud van Nistelrooy now, or would you be like, we've got a really, really tough run of fixtures coming up? Could you bring someone in ahead of those? We have 5 massive games at the end of the season, don't we? 3 of them against our table.
Vardy player manager with King as assistant.
Yeah.
Football manager tactics. Do you know what? I was just thinking. I when you first asked it, I said no, I wouldn't. But actually, the problem is in my head is just like you can see just how toxic it is at the ground. So there is something to be said of like, I know the problem is that if you give it to someone like Andy King or someone like that, aren't you just like doing the same thing as what you're doing with a young player? You're just like writing them off before their career can even get started. It's not.
I mean, look
fair.
at Giggs. Look at what happened with Giggs when United.
Yeah.
I mean, you're drawing parallels to United already, right? I mean, look at Giggs at United. What happened? I know he was only interim, but
yeah, it happens to everyone. So I don't know. It probably isn't worth doing it, but. The issue is, as I say, it's going to be so bad at the end of the season. You can say all the fans have turned against them already. I'm not disputing the fact for saying that why they shouldn't. It's not going to be a very fun 12 remaining games, that's for sure.
I would say sack him, and the reason I say that is because the alternative is it's relegation. I mean, we're going down as it stands. You know, I don't see any way that Ruud gets us out of this, and I'm not saying that a new manager would. But it's that thing, roll the dice. But no, I'm not saying Dyche, but roll the dice, because what else can you do? You either accept relegation or you roll the dice. And that's how I feel. Imran, last words, mate. What would you do?
I don't know. I just think it's too late to sack him now.
It's earlier than Rodgers.
Sorry?
Rodgers wasn't sacked until the 4th of April or the 5th of April.
Yeah, but Rodgers had the rest of the season, didn't he? He had the whole season. We're going to have what, I forgot your name, mate. Michael.
Michael.
Yeah, Michael. You know, which player has sacked which team has sacked 2 managers and stayed up? It just doesn't happen. So I'd probably just keep him. Like I said, results ain't great. He's stubborn, but I just can't see who's going to come in. Even Dyche would probably turn us down. So that's my position.
Yeah, I hear you. Last load of comments here. So, LCFC number 4 says, "Can't say better. Do it. Sack Ruud, get Dyche in. We can go down fighting with a different manager, or go down with a whimper under RVN. That's a good point." Jay says they have to sack him. Scott says, "Breaking news: Locks wants Ruud sacked." I mean, I didn't. Well, yeah, I kind of did say that, to be fair. David said, "Hopefully Ruud walks so we can get Sean Dyche in for the rest of the season." I mean, if you know that you might get sacked, do you walk? You're gonna get a payout. I mean, I wouldn't. I'd just sit there until I got sacked. So, Dawn says we are down regardless. Wolves way better than us. Truly, Ethan says it's difficult when most will be forced to be sold by the EFL. We'll talk about that in the future. They won't sack him, says Josh. We are the new Watford, Tony says. We're too late now. Ruud might do decent in the Championship. I'm hoping we keep Fatawu. Maybe I'm dreaming. David says, I don't want Ruud for the Championship either. Dyche, willpower. I hope he walks and we don't sack him. Can't afford it. And finally, Manny says, Ruud with those last comments is done. He's openly admitted we aren't good enough. Can't do that. He wants out too. I think.
Yeah, haven't we done that as well? Haven't we done that and said that?
Yeah, but we're not the manager, mate, are we? You know what I mean? We're not the manager.
You can't imagine being one of the Leicester players and seeing your manager say that. I mean, from our perspective, I'd like to think it'd fire a rocket up their arse, which is probably what he actually wants to come from this. But they're so depressing.
Yeah, not good. Anyway, don't worry. There's a lot more to talk about in the future. What's tomorrow night? What's tomorrow night, Anil?
Well, it's the call-in show, so that's going to be a fun one with everyone talking about exactly that facial reaction. Locks, there you go. I will do some analysis on that game. I don't know why I'm doing this to myself. I was just thinking back the other day, you're going to have 12 more games of just basically saying, and this is how we lost this week. We tried this BS and it didn't work either. But
I wouldn't mind if we tried something else. So that's, we tried this. I would take a loss if we tried something else.
I agree with you, Michael. That is exactly, I totally agree. That's the thing, is that if we just keep doing the same thing expecting to get better. I mean, I suppose to defend Ruud, he's probably thought, well, it did work against Spurs, we've got to keep doing it. But I think that was a very one-off game. Is what it is.
It's interesting. It'd be interesting to have a discussion around which players do you think are going to stay next season? Because look, let's be honest, we're 99% relegated. But I honestly think that Bilal, who else was there? Mads even. And I know there's a big rumor that he's going to leave. But I think if we can build a team around, especially Fatawu and Bilal and Mads, we keep those three. You know, we've got a chance.
Let's get a video.
They're not on big salaries, Locks, right?
Yeah,
they're
No,
not
I think they are on big salaries, and I think the big salaries, believe it or not, might help us because that's what it's going to come down to. Like, if I'm sure a lot of those players, people will want them, but if it's a case of, let's say Bilal, let's say he's getting paid 40 grand a week or something by us, right? That's huge by Belgian standards. So will a Premier League club want to come in and, let's say, spend 30 million in plus increase his wages? Maybe. But to be honest with you, I would say statistically, they might be like, he might be good, but it'd probably be better off to see if he can do it in the Championship and be player of the season. So he might get away with it with some of the signings that we got.
Same as Fatawu, right?
He's injured, so no one's going to sign him without.
So he'll probably stay. And then if we can keep Mads, we've got 3 quality players. Vardy's, let's be honest, he's done now. Probably be an impact sub next season if he extends. So I think, you know what? Look, it's not all doom and gloom. Let's be positive as well. If we can keep these younger players, come on, Locks, let's have a bit of positivity. We'll go down, but we've got to shoot to come back up next season. But we'll have this discussion, I guess, on another stream.
I think Fatawu's a banker to stay because of his ACL. I think Bilal's 50-50, and I think Mads is 100% gone, personally. What were you going to say, Michael? You were going to say something about a video?
No, I think we should make that video. I think we should sit down with a few of us and, I mean, very early on, look at what a team could look like next year for us. I think that's an interesting one that I think the viewers would love to hear about that, in my opinion.
Yeah. For sure. We'll get it done. We will get it done. Thank you to everybody who's joined us. Thanks to Michael and Imran as well. Put Locks in a 0 in place of Vestergaard and Fast. I mean, a 0 might be quicker. I'm certainly not. I think Vestergaard's beating me in a race. So, right. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to all the commenters. Make sure to hit like. Make sure to hit subscribe. We will see you tomorrow night at 7 p.m. for the live call-in show. See you then. Bye-bye.